When you hear those sounds, those little bells and whistles and those trumpets, it's truth time on the TruthWire. How you doing today, ladies and gentlemen? Sharia law is upon us here in America now. That's what we're hearing out there. I'm getting exes, fam, cousins, aunts, uncles. It's over. They're Catholic Catholic beliefs are going to be thrown in the toilet. No longer is this a Christian nation. It is time for Muhammad to start ruling it. Welcome back to the
Sharia law.
Sharia law. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula.
It's Shakira law. You know, at least we've improved the vocabulary from calling it Shakira law to Sharia law. It's an improvement. We're getting the terms right in the last few years. So I guess I should be looking up to that. So the title of this show has I think you included it, idiots everywhere, because that's all I've been seeing on my feed. Everything from boobs to endless Mamdani posts to like just the dumbest discussions. And like, I think I escaped the algorithm for a while and then it came back. And like, I thought I was all the way here in Russia, but apparently also the algorithm here is also messed up as well. And it's bringing me the dumbest shit that it could possibly bring me. And I think the conversation we were having before we started the show was actually much more interesting in many ways, because it was honest. And here's the thing, like I feel like I just get so depressed every time I see politics in the US because it just feels like a constant, what's that movie, Groundhog Day? Like all the time.
Yeah.
There's just never any change whatsoever. People are doing the same exact thing they did 10 years ago, and they're going to continue doing that for the next decades to come, it seems. I mean, I tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that
No, you're not wrong. You're 1,000% right, fam. And, you know, today we're obviously going to be talking about Venezuela to open up the show. Then we go into the Donald Trump 60-minute interview, which, you know, the whole time I'm watching this interview, and it's about 28 minutes. And ladies and gentlemen, we watched it for you, so you don't have to go ahead and do it. All I can think about was Obama and what we went through and how we went and we digressed. We went right back into what we're doing again. Like you said, the alarm sounded. We woke up again. It's the same day over and over again. It's the same old playbook and bullshit. And it's even worse this time because the Trumpers are still so invested in Donald Trump. Like the people for Obama were invested in Obama. And it's so divisive now. It's completely, this whole, if you can't see a psychological op in your face, I think it was, you used to say all the time, fam, and I heard other people say, we deserve better psychological operations. It's so sloppy. Well, this is it again. Here comes Mamdani. And all everybody was talking about is bullshit. It's Shakira law, the Muslim thing, the communism thing. Meanwhile, the ruling class is screwing the people over and over again. We have an imperialistic mindset, a country that is just run rampant. I didn't think that Donald Trump could be this fucking bad, but he can, because why? His people will stand behind him and support him. And just like there was a lack of people talking about Israel when this stuff came out of the gate, stuff we were talking about for decades, there's a lack of people talking about what's going on in Venezuela right now, kind of justifying it and saying, well, they're bringing drugs, fam. They're sending us our worst. So many things that were planted in their brains from movies. Like, really, people think about immigration the way they think about Scarface. And in the beginning of Scarface, it's like a documentary, like Oliver Stone, like, Fidel Castro opened up his insane asylums and his prisons, and he put them all on boats, and he sent them over here. And Donald Trump is repeating those same bullshit lies, no data, no nothing, and people take it as absolutes. And it's just, we're in a very screwed up, fucked up position. And really, to tell you the truth, as the TruthWire, a.k.a. Convo Couch, comes back, you better lock in and get on over here, folks. We love your discussions and stuff like that, but this is the place where we're talking about stuff before it happens from everybody. We're talking about stuff over here. I can pat myself. I can pat Fee on the back. We are talking about shit before anybody else is even fucking talking about it. And there's other people out there that do this great work too as well, some of our sources and stuff. But holy shit, fam. Like, shitballs. We're back to where we started from. That Donald Trump interview was ridiculous. The man is fucking ridiculous. He is not in charge of anything. But I don't know. Dark days ahead, I guess. There it is. We deserve better psyops.
Yeah. Well, it's dark days ahead with everything going on. And one of the biggest things I think that we are going to start focusing on is obviously we've been focusing a lot on this show for years now in foreign policy. And we knew that with Donald Trump, there was going to be an attack on Latin America. But so far, there has been a war pretty much is arming towards Latin America, against Venezuela, against also Colombia, and now against Mexico. So Donald Trump is now threatening to send troops to Mexico. I put up a thing on that. We can go over that later. But here's the thing. This is just, getting bigger and bigger. And the reason why I think we can go off of everything we've talked about, including the Mamdani stuff with this, is nothing will fundamentally change with these idiots that are getting plastered all over our television. And the thing is, people are so easily distracted in the United States that the next exciting thing comes on and they're like, oh my God, it's just so great watching the Zionists shit their pants. Yeah, okay. Like, yeah, I think it's hilarious, but at the same time, isn't that par for the course? This is what always happens. You always have the same people being pissed off about the same dumb stuff, because this is why these characters are put out there, because they are polarizing, and this, of course, is what you need to continue the distraction, to continue the division, to continue the same cycle. And so when we talk about foreign policy, we're pointing out a part that of our history and our government in the US that's never really discussed. And I think Venezuela is going to be, I think, an even bigger wake-up call this time than it was before, because back when, of course, Juan Guaido was trying to be the interim president of Venezuela, less people knew about what was going on. I remember us talking about it. I remember us, having people talk on about it who were there at the embassy, who were trying to stop this. And here we are again, 7 years later or so, and we're still like pretty much doing the same thing. And it's really frustrating to see. But this is, again, I'm hoping that each time we are getting to more people. And I think because of everything that's happened, I think it's becoming less of like a left-right thing and more of like just, okay, this is wrong and we need to stop what is happening, what is coming next.
Let me just digress a bit to say really quickly that when people are like, oh my God, is anti-Zionism guys now holding office and stuff like that, that's what the system is designed to do. Give you these little emotional victories that really don't do anything to the status quo. They look at the front like it's something different right now, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, when he goes back to WWE and he hits John Cena or somebody over the head, they're still friends, right? It might look like a different, oh my God, The Rock's now a heel again, and here he goes, he's the bad guy and the good guy. That's what the system is designed to do. Give you these little emotional victories while they're, what's the word? When you're moving forward, a state of, my tongue twisted over here, acceleration. They're accelerating their technocratic stage. I mean, Donald Trump talked about biometrics at the border. I mean, it's ridiculous out here. And that's what Captain Austin Fitz talked about. They're going to get a bunch of Democrats on QR codes, get them on the grids. Then they're going to use the threat of immigration to get the Republicans on the QR codes, the real ID passports. And that's what they're doing. And they give you these little emotional victories here and there, and you think that's what it is. And still, fam, really, to tell you the truth, I do have to say that there were a lot of leftists, phony, synthetic leftists, real leftists, whatnot, that did say that the worst part about Donald Trump is that he brings out the xenophobia in people, the racism in people, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? He does. He does.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's to blame for when some fucking stupid citizen does something in his name or he supported him, and you got to blame Donald Trump. But we do have a xenophobic fucking nation. They think that immigration is a big problem, and they're not fucking looking at the imperialism that's fucking expanding and going crazy around the globe. They need everything evil stems from imperialism. And if you fucking would start cutting and neutering the balls of imperialism, you'd have less migration and less people coming here because you wouldn't be fucking up their homeland. Lock in, people.
One of the worst things that is happening is they're tying, and this is something we said a long time ago, and that Tulsi Gabbard said, but I don't think she stands by. Our foreign policy is our domestic policy. And for the longest time, the Trump administration has been trying to tie, of course, the immigration problem to terrorism. In this sense, it's been narco-terrorism. And a few months ago, I don't know if you all recall, there was a comment made that there were going to be Iranian sleeper cells coming in through the border of Mexico. And so people were repeating this sort of thing. And of course, this goes along with what's happening in Europe as well, that Europe is having an immigration problem. And we talked about this last time as being blowback for our interventions. And of course, it's not just ours, it's the UK's, Europe's, etc. This has been happening for a very long time. And so Maria Corina Machado gave this interview that I think most of you maybe have seen. And I want to discuss this interview because it is extremely important. A lot of people focused on what she said about the oil, which is also important. But I think one of the most key important things she said is the modus operandi of the United States. It's really, really, really tells you how we will go about this. And it's not just going to be these extrajudicial killings, which are already absolutely terrible, but it's going to be also attempts to turn Maduro's closest allies, closest adversaries against him, to try to tie terrorism to Venezuela. And Maria Corina Machado did this extremely well in this interview, and she went all out. And I just want to read it, and I want us to play it. Do you have anything else to say before we listen to that?
Ma'am, please call her MCM. She's like AOC. She wants to be called MCM. It's not Marina Corina Machado. It's MCM. Thank you.
Yeah, and her name is, like, everybody says it wrong because it's just so long and we don't want to say it. So that's probably a good idea.
Well,
but
she's also a CIA sleeper cell agent too, as well. So yeah.
Well, she specifically pretty much gave the entire propaganda, didn't really miss very much at all. She targeted everybody. She went after Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, Russia, and tied all of them to Maduro, which is, of course, par for the course. But this is very important because this is how you get a false flag operation. This is how you get that incitement to go to war with Venezuela. So let's listen to this interview that she did, and we have several clips of that. So let's start.
For years, we were, asking the world to understand the degree of the threat and this devastation the Maduro regime was building in Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela has been turned into the safe haven for the activities of all criminal international networks, from the drug cartels to the Colombian guerrilla, to those groups that smuggle gold and destroy communities of our indigenous people and the ecology, to networks that smuggle arms and even human trafficking and child prostitution. This is horrible, what we're living. Russian agents, Iranian agents freely operating in Venezuela, Hezbollah and Hamas being located in our country. And as any criminal structure works, the moment you start, weakening them and they falling apart is when you cut the sources of and the inflows of their criminal activities. And we have asked for years the international community to cut these sources that come from drug trafficking and other criminal activities. Finally, this is happening.
So you think those killings are justified then? That's what I really want to understand. Are they justified? Or are they, as the UN would say, extrajudicial killings?
This is about saving lives. And Maduro is absolutely conscious, and he has been warned what not to do. These deaths are the responsibility of Nicolás Maduro. He knows, and the rest of the drug cartels that is in power in Venezuela, that they should stop these activities in order to prevent more deaths, not only of the Venezuelan people, but also from people all around the country. And look, this is very important. We don't want war. It was Maduro who started this war.
You are someone who stands for people's rights, for the rights of Venezuelans, for their democratic rights, for their human rights. What about the rights to due process of the people who were on those boats?
I certainly defend the rights of everyone, not only Venezuelans. And that's why my voice has been, loud all along this process. But you need to understand, all the international community need to understand that this is a very cruel war. It was Maduro who turned this into an international conflict. Look, when you
Are those
face,
people expendable? That's really what I'm wondering. Are those people expendable on the boats?
It was Maduro who insisted on maintaining operations that have consequences. It is Maduro that started a war against other countries, knowing that that would have consequences. I am talking about, this process is about saving lives, millions of lives. That's what we need to do. I mean, we have been for years explaining the degree of crimes against humanity that take place in Venezuela and that need to be stopped. It is systematic, it's massive, it needs to be stopped. Finally, there is a reaction from international coalition that is calling things by their names.
Fam.
Okay, so first of all,
wow.
Yeah,
Holy
multiple
shit.
people pointed out that she does look like the Joker. When I posted this video, people it's kind of weird, she does look like a villain, but that's a superficial comment. I want to start off by saying she didn't miss when it comes to being a puppet. I mean, she got every single thing that you could possibly get, every single villain from the United States' perspective that you could possibly attach to Venezuela in one way or another. She did it. I mean, the Iranian agents, the Russian agents, Hezbollah, Hamas. It's just endless. And the thing is, now she would not answer the question from the Bloomberg interviewer, and she makes Bloomberg look like a sane outlet. But she makes mainstream media look actually sane by comparison, because they're asking her, so you're saying that you justifying what Donald Trump is doing. Now, of course, they're coming at this from the liberal aspect of we hate Donald Trump. And you said later on, she says, this, you sound exactly like Donald Trump, is essentially what she says. This is what Donald Trump is saying, that this is needed. Basically, what she was trying to get her to admit is that she's justifying the extrajudicial killings or the murder of these fishermen, these people on these boats, because she's blaming Maduro. But she wouldn't say that. She would just go straight to Maduro started this war. Maduro did this. The people of Venezuela don't want war. Maduro's doing this. And there's more to come. But I mean, this ties it all together as to how you could get Americans to agree. Because if you somehow start something where you tie any sort of terrorist attack to Venezuela or to the crazy radical Muslims that are taking over New York City now because of, Mamdani is now the communist jihadist that is in charge of New York, then you can easily get a wide segment of the population to buy it. I mean, it's not going to be as much as before, but you're still going to get some people, especially on the right, that are so, adamant about this stuff right now, to buy into it and to say, well, we gotta defend our country from these druggies and terrorists that are coming through the border, because this is a huge selling point to that sector of the population.
Well, to add to that point, fam, you forgot the crazy communists as you're talking about, crazy Hamas and all that other stuff. The right has their, a litany of boogeymen out there too as well. I do want to kind of mention this right over here too as well. And welcome everybody to the show today. Seen some old school names out there. Natalie Williams, David Crow. Of course, we see Fred Edward and Ruth. We love you guys so much, everybody out there. President Jafar, thank you guys so much for watching the show. The lack of due process from both sides just is mind-boggling, right? administration that gets in, which they serve the same people in the ruling class, the same, they say serve the same donors. They just take more of our freedoms away and they justify it. In this particular situation, like you said, even Bloomberg looking to say, what about the due process over here? It's not allowed. You know what I'm saying? That is very mind-boggling. But the thing that is also bothering me too, fam, is the fact the longer that we talk about this bullshit, as far as like the cartels and the drug smuggling here, the further we get away from talking about the national crisis that we have of why so many people are addicted to opioids in the first place. And that's still not being talked about. It's not being asked in the media. They're pointing it out. Maduro is pointing it out. People around them are pointing out. Is Claudia Scheinbaum's pointing it out. Is that the problem here is America has a national crisis they're not addressing, and that's the underlying thing that's happening right here. We're not addressing why so many people are addicted to opioids in the first place, and that's what we need to do. America needs to look in the mirror. And as long as we have these characters out there, these phonies out there, the newest one being Mamdani, and you can just see Gloria Guillo wrote this amazing article about how they're kind of splitting up in sides. And it's almost like a prize fight from back in the days with Jake LaMotta and this guy who was known to take a fall. It was phony, but people thought it was real. And that's what's happening right now. And they're just lining up. You got Handsome Newsom and Mamdani on one side and J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and the other. There's people talking about Marco Rubio looking to position himself to run for president. That's what you got going on. And when you see scripts like this, oh my God, fam, it is scary. But you got to credit her. She's sticking to the script. And if you stick to the script, people will find their confirmation bias and they'll find a reason to get behind their team and they'll go along with this, and more people will continue to die.
Yeah. And I gotta say, it's an interest. Maria Corina Machado really shows
MCM.
that there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans, because had this been a Democrat president, she would have gotten away with saying the same exact thing. She would have just said, well, maybe just laid it on that, this is wrong, or we might have not done it so extrajudicially. We might have been more covert about it, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, you'd still have her pushed out to the forefront, making these speeches and saying this. So you can tell that she's kind of treading lightly because, they don't necessarily want to affiliate us with Donald Trump, because they know the Democrats have their back too. This is not just a Trump thing, but they've shifted and they said, okay, well, we're going to work with the Trump administration because the Trump administration wants what we want. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. Both the Democrats and Republicans have been completely in favor of getting rid of Maduro and putting in their own puppet for a long time. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it was Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. This still would have happened one way or another.
Yeah, policies were the same. But what do you think about that, fam? Maduro is a fool for not locking her up, because he didn't lock up Juan Guaido. And we saw when Juan Guaido went back to Venezuela, they almost tore his shirt off in a restaurant. And a lot of people feel if he would have locked her up, that might have manufactured consent for the Americans and the international community to go further at Venezuela. And that's why he maybe didn't lock her up. And as we know, the difference between, and I haven't gotten a chance to go to Venezuela. You have. I've been to Cuba 3 times now. But in Cuba, the bourgeoisie was thrown out. They're gone. They packed up and they went home. In Venezuela, the bourgeoisie actually still exist and have power in parts of Caracas. It's a different situation. So what are your thoughts thank you for the comment over here in the chat, Roscoe-6673. Maduro is a fool for not locking her up. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. I mean, I think that the thought process is, if you actually do that, then you are being, they're going to frame you as a brutal dictator. They're going to frame you as that. This is, I mean, the same reason why Putin kind of like went around, what's his name? The opposition leader of Russia. This is the same way in Nicaragua, while Daniel Ortega gets criticized for pretty much making it impossible for the opposition, who is funded by the United States, to literally run an unfair election, because he knows that they're funded by the US. But whenever he does this, they say that he's a dictator, that he's trying to impede democracy from taking over. So it's a fine line you have to walk on, right? It's very difficult for them to make this decision. And I think you could go either way. I think if you were to lock her up because, let's say, she's trying to overthrow the legitimate government, there's a way to do it. But I also think that it would be used against him. I'm of the opinion, though, that at the end of the day, everything's going to be used against him. They're still going to call him a dictator no matter what he does, no matter what he says. So at the end of the day, I think there's a real argument for saying maybe there should have been more restrictions placed on her regardless, because they're never going to accept him. They're always going to call him a dictator. They're always going to say he's a terrorist, he's a narco-terrorist. They're going to invent whatever they need to invent to get the outcome that they want. So that's
maybe we
part of it.
can maybe we could start the lock her up chant back again, fam. Lock her up, lock her up. Let's do it.
So fam, she continues on this whole thing. The next one, Jayme, if you can put that one up. She talks about just increasing pressure. This is the only way to force out Maduro. I don't think this is a repeat, but let's go ahead and listen to what she says here.
I believe that the increase in pressure and the escalation that's taking place is the only way to force Maduro to understand that it's time to go. I believe that.
So just to reiterate this, she is, again, justifying what Donald Trump is doing, which is illegal according to international law, because she wants to take Maduro out, and because obviously the U.S. deep state agrees with her and they want to take Maduro out. So this is somebody that just won a Nobel Peace Prize, right? Which we know is bullshit, for spreading democracy and protecting the people of Venezuela. This is what that means. That's what it means. That's what spreading democracy means. It means literally not respecting sovereignty. It means doing whatever you need to do, even if that means killing people, innocent people, to get the outcome you want. So anytime they tell you, whether it's a Democrat, Republican, whoever, that we need to care about Venezuela because we need to care about the democracy, you should bring up the fact that that includes killing people at random. It includes assassinating people, like Trump assassinated Qasem Soleimani. Again, another assassination that was just outright. That's what this means. Anytime that they say these things, we need to come back with, well, so we are justified in doing this. Let's reverse it. Let's say that Venezuela or Russia or China or Iran or Cuba began killing a bunch of fishermen outside of the U.S. waters because they were coming in and bringing in some sort of, narco terrorism, or they were bringing in some, coup plotters. If any other country did that, they would be blown up into oblivion. The United States would absolutely retaliate.
Yeah.
And that's something you just have to have in perspective. Like, no matter what you believe is irrelevant, whether you think Maduro is awful or whether you think she's correct. It's none of your business. It's none of our business. We are nobody to decide what a sovereign country does. And this is a point that we need to make with the right, because it doesn't matter how much you hate communism. It's irrelevant. I don't care how much you hate communism. Why do you care about Venezuela? Now, if you're honest with yourself and you say, well, we want the oil, okay, then just say that you justify taking people's resources because you consider that to be America first. That's different. I don't respect that point of view because I think it's devoid of morality, but at least it would be honest.
Yes. And I see more people like that out there nowadays, even podcasters out there or independent media news people, whatever you want to call them. Nick Fuentes. I think we should, we should coup Venezuela. We can take their oil. You see more people honest about that stuff. Even the commander you had that was talking about, the what is it, CamCon or what's that region called? The lady who's in charge there?
Southcom, you mean, or CARICOM? CARICOM.
whatever it is. I'm talking about the American general, or she's not a general, she's a lieutenant, but she talked about this is a resource-rich area. They're kind of starting to get in the open about that. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying is that when it comes down to it, the right in America, even the populist right, they are about empire at the end of the day. They will be justified if we get the resources. But the thing that's crazy is none of those resources are trickling down to the little guy, right? And they're also, to go get those resources, it costs lives because you mentally mess up a lot of your soldiers when they go in there. They have to go see what we do. You know, there's always been, we used to talk about AM Wake Up. Some of the people have said, you wouldn't believe what they make us do over there to people. You know what I'm saying? And as you're seeing these stories with the IDF and what they're doing, where they're filming, they're raping and whatnot, and the terror that's involved, especially when you perceive somebody to be the enemy, it's awful, you know? So they go along with it, but the resources that are taken from those countries only go into rich men's pockets. They don't go into the middle class's pockets. They don't trickle down to us. They cost lives, they cost money, and they're probably one of the leading causes to immigration, which you hate so much in the first place. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I think people need to lock in and really look at the problems for what they are. And they're cool with that, fam. They're cool with going us and taking the oil, you know? And by the way, too, on a side note, fam, if Nick Fuentes is an op and now he's on Tucker Carlson, doesn't that make Tucker Carlson an op too? Or an insider? Ooh,
we're full of controlled opposition and acts in Twitter. Like, we're just full of it. I mean, there's no way you're gonna tell me that we're not. I'm you know, that's another discussion for another time. Might be more so left for the last one. But fam, she mentions the elections, right? This is a signal to the Republicans. This is a signal to pretty much everybody. But you know that the ghost of Hugo Chavez was mostly pushed by a lot of the right. And this is why it's important to have people beyond our echo chamber to go to these elections and see how they are. And so she talks about this. She talks about that she is absolutely sure that Maduro and the whole sector of the Chavistas are behind rigging elections all over the world. So now she's playing into these conspiracy theories that were put out in Brazil and in other places, that the elections were rigged, you know, but hey, US elections are totally not rigged, right?
Let's play the clip. I did hear this clip. I did see this, and you're right, fam. She is playing into the Sidney Powell, the ghost of Hugo Chavez, stealing elections. It's a good thing we know the guy Clint Curtis, who actually testified in a Florida hearing that they approached him about making a flip mechanism system years before Hugo Chavez's election. And also, once again, we talked about the bourgeoisie still being in Venezuela, right? And they also talk about Smartmatic and all these. That's the oppositional groups. They had an office here in Boca Raton. You think the Chavistas are going to be allowed to have an office in Boca Raton, guys? It's not going to happen. That's how they twist things.
Do you think part of President Trump's interest is linked to his beliefs around the 2020 election and the allegation that voting machines and people close to Maduro's circle were involved in the election that he wrongly believes was stolen from him in 2020?
Well, on the first hand, I have no doubt that Nicolás Maduro, Jorge Rodriguez, and many others are, the masterminds of a system that has rigged elections in many countries, including the US. I have no doubt about that. And they are totally involved in wrongdoing in many countries.
Do you think part of President...
Wow, fam.
I mean, that's a huge...
No evidence, no explaining on how.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And I just like to ask, well, tell me how they did it. What did they exactly do? And then ask the next question, okay, if they did this, then what about that? Oh, if they rigged the machines, everybody gets a piece of paper, right? But you audited 51% of the machines, right? Okay, so why didn't you know exactly what machines were screwing you? You'd already have a blueprint of understanding where the Chavistas would get their votes, where the oppositional party would get their votes. You'd be able to flag individual machines. Why wasn't that done? How did they know which machines to check? Did they know beforehand with the audit? How come things weren't called out in the audit? The audit should have been way off, right? And there's a 51% count right there. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. They just can say these things blank and blindly because, once again, people don't know the difference between, there's a difference between a voting machine and a counting machine, or both. And there's a different ways to check it. And if we had a choice between our election system or what the Venezuelans do, give me the Venezuelans system 24/7, 7 days a week, and twice on Sunday. Yes, there's vulnerabilities in the systems. There's vulnerabilities in every single election system. Some are bigger than others. Some can be pinpointed. Ours, like in America, they can't. It's all over the place where the vulnerabilities are at. So you would have to understand these are where the vulnerabilities are at. How can it be cheated? What are the safeguards against it? This is how the proof would come out. And if both Brazil and Venezuela were fixed, the opposition did an awful job of calling it out. These blanket statements that mean nothing, but people go, oh, it's machines. It's got to be fixed.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is insane. It's insane that she just gets to literally say this, and she knows who she's saying it to. She's been instructed to say it to these people because, again, she's clearly working with the Trump administration, clearly. And so you have this whole thing happening that is trying to get people to be like, yeah, that's right. The communists from Venezuela are coming here and they're rigging our elections for the radical left, because that's the angle, right? Which is hilarious because we have neither AOC nor any of these people are the radical left. They're just, your old school shit libs. And so you have all of this crap going on, and you can tell that what I'm saying is true, because if you ask any of these people right now in Congress if they support Nicolas Maduro, they will tell you no. They think Nicolas Maduro is a dictator, and that includes the squad, that includes the progressives, that includes all of them. They will say that he's a dictator. They will say that Venezuela needs democracy. They'll just say that they don't agree with Donald Trump's tactics just because they have to oppose him, because what else are they going to campaign on? So but really, as long as they have that caveat, but Nicolas Maduro is a dictator, it opens up the possibilities for them to continue this smear campaign.
Can I make a point real quick too, though? And I'd like you to back me up on this, because being that you come from that region, your family's from that region, there are opposition people in these other countries, right? Like, I think a lot of times the ideologues in America who wear their Che Guevara shirt and say Viva la Revolucion think that the whole country is like that, and they want to go to a socialist system. I don't like the fact when you have a lot of leftists who are fighting for these countries and fighting to end imperialism are also trying to slip in their ideology and saying, well, the country should be that. We should have a worldwide socialist party and whatnot. No, our job is to make sure that our country doesn't get involved, and they get their national sovereignty, and they choose whatever they want within their own people. Because there is an opposition in these countries. Not everybody are socialist. They don't, you meet a lot of Uber drivers in Brazil that don't like Lula, that think he's a criminal, whatever. They're oppositional to his social programs, whatnot, even though it helps them. You know what I'm saying? Same thing I would assume in Venezuela. We saw it in Peru. We see it in Nicaragua. Not everybody is a socialist at heart in these countries. There is an opposition. It should be our position, left and right, to just stay out of their business and let them have their national sovereignty. That's what should be done. Am I right or wrong to say that?
No, it should be that. At the end of the day, regardless of how you feel about socialism or communism or capitalism, it's for Venezuelans to decide. And I say this about every other country, regardless of how I feel about Russia's government not being a communist government, not being the Soviet Union, being religious. It's for Russians up to decide how they want their government. It's not for anybody else to decide. It's not for NATO. It's not for the US. It's not for me. It's not for, unless you are a Russian citizen and you live there, you really have no say. It doesn't matter what you think of Vladimir Putin, because you're not Russian and it's not your country. Why does what you think, your ideology, have to be the one that gets to be infiltrated? And the problem with the left that often, is, for example, cheering on Mamdani right now. They believe with their ideology first, and they have their blinders on, where they they consider this a step in the right direction because it's, what their idea of socialism is, which is actually not socialism. It's like social democracy with a lot of like LGBTQ and all the stuff that they're promoting. That's their idea. That's not the same thing that goes on in economically socialist countries like Nicaragua, who, again, we've talked about this before. It's a very conservative Christian type of people that are in the party right now, but they're economically socialist in terms of the policies they abide by. Whereas in the United States, we're socially far left, but economically, you still have people begging for $15 an hour. You still have people thinking that you can reform and tax the rich, and that's going to do shit for everybody. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we've seen it when we've gone abroad and we've gone south and people try to say, well, you should support abortion or you should support this or that. It's none of your business. If the people of those countries aren't ready for that, that's theirs. How do you know your way is better? And oftentimes for me, it's a very, I would say, fundamentally supremacist and racist and just very, just arrogant attitude to have towards other countries, thinking that you should know better, thinking that women in Iran actually, they should be freer because that having less clothes means you're free. How do you know that this is not what they want? How do you know, and again, there is always going to be opposition. And a lot of the times it's ignorance. A lot of the times it's just simply because they don't agree with the government. A lot of the times it's their perspective is different. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, you just get in the US, you get, the Venezuelan gusanos who literally want the US to go in. And this is what Corina Machado says on the next one. She's asking for intervention. She's asking for the US multinational companies to come in and take the country's oil. She's demanding actually that happens. And for me, my personal view of that, that's disgusting because, personally, as somebody that is from the region, I find that just extremely groveling attitude towards the West as being weak and being a complete traitor to your country, like as being, pro-colonialist, pro-neocolonialism, pro-imperialism. Do you not think your people are enough to govern themselves? Do you really think that you need the United States government, the Yankee Empire, to come tell you how to run your shit? How humiliating is that? That you think you need them? For me, that's my personal point of view and ideology. I hate that. I hate any sort of, monarchy, any sort of belief in any sort of system that has a very top-down system, because that's not what I believe in. But if Venezuelans genuinely on their own tomorrow wanted that and had an actual process that was respected by the world, and we all went there and we saw, hey, I guess this is what they want, who am I to say no, you can't have that? I mean, that's not how it works.
This reminds me of the person in Nicaragua who went and talked to Daniel Ortega's son about having more gay rights in Nicaragua. And, it was kind of like startling. It was like, we were kind of the essence, like, look, man, we understand where you're coming from, but who are we to tell this country full of a bunch of Catholics or Christians or, I'm saying that they should kind of, acquiesce to the beliefs of the homosexual, ideology right now, that you have to give them time. And I think there's an understanding. I think it's blown up a little bit much. Obviously, the machismo and whatnot. But somebody did put something in the chat. And fam, I just wanted you to talk about this because it was kind of funny. Jayme put up a tweet about, it's bonkers that she wins the Nobel Peace Prize. Then she's calling for intervention right away. It's nuts. But this person said the U.S. only interferes against socialists in Latin America, though, and only backs right-wing opposition. It's not so much about ideology. It's that socialism and a lot of social entities means a lot of nationalizing of their resources. The U.S. wants their corporations to get those resources. So it's not so much about the ideology. It's just about who gets to control the resources. And with socialism, a lot of times, central planning, nationalizing of your oil, your crude oil in Venezuela, like Hugo Chavez did, that means the corporations, Chevron, Exxon, they don't get those profits. And that's what it's all about. It's not so much. That's why they use the boogeyman of socialism because they want those resources, and that's what it's mainly about.
I mean, ultimately, the economic aspect of nationalizing resources is an actual socialist aspect, like, because that is centered around, the wealth staying in the countries. This is why Pedro Castillo of Peru is in jail, because he tried to nationalize the resources, and that impacted the multinational companies. And these are just, she's going to talk about the oil in the next clip, but it's not just about the oil, it's the minerals that are going to be extremely important in this coming time. Yeah. For big tech, for AI development, for computer development, for all of this stuff. Yeah. And so this is what really they're getting at here. But I also do think that the ideology is a sense of, especially with the Venezuelan people, it's a sense of resistance, of not giving up, an actual real resistance, not the fucking brouhaha liberal resistance of hating Trump or no kings bullshit. Yeah. I'm talking about people who are actually resisting empire, who have suffered sanctions, who have been on the side of bombs, of attacks. So it's this type of mentality of saying, no, you don't get to have a say in our affairs. That is an ideology that they do want to crush. Beyond the terms of just communism, socialism, I think it's just an ideology of not allowing yourselves to be subjugated by a power that's imposing itself on your sovereignty, and that does need to be crushed, because that will always be a nuisance to the Monroe Doctrine, a nuisance to expansion across the world. So that's something that I do think does play a role. Yeah, can we play the next one, Jayme? I think that's the last clip.
We have in Venezuela the largest proven oil reserves in the world, the 8th reservoir of natural gas, huge potential in electricity, gold, critical minerals, and so on. This can only be unleashed with a society, with a government that brings order to this chaos, that open markets, that brings rule of law, that is friendly to international investment. And in a country that is producing less than 1 million barrels a day could reach 4, 5, or 6 in a decade. We have.
So notice how she's framing it as being good for everybody and very good for business. But before Hugo Chavez, why did Hugo Chavez come into power? These things don't just happen spontaneously. Why did the Soviet Union come into power? Why did all these revolutions happen? They happened because people were extremely desperate, extremely poor, living in poverty, and there was organization for years and years and years that eventually led to a radical change that was pushed by the people, not through just simple election processes, but processes that happened outside of the electoral box that led to that. And then ultimately, of course, led to an entire change in government. This is why all of this happened, because in Venezuela, there were, of course, the United States was present, their business was booming, but only for a small sector of the population. And the same can be said about Cuba before, and the same can be said about pretty much any other country. So whether or not, again, you agree with how things were, what you have to understand is that a huge sector of the population did not like that. And they did things to change that. And so if that happens organically, I think, the rest of the world would be okay, that's fine. But we don't allow that to happen organically. In the United States and in NATO, we want to control pretty much who gets to have that. And it's never organic. So that's the difference between, genuinely people not liking something and people then, being forced to change their government because somebody else dictates that. So
how dare they put our oil under their country, fam?
Exactly. How dare they?
We got a big crowd with us today. 55 minutes in. That was a good section. That's what's going on. She's been making the rounds, and they're obviously pushing for it. I just want to close, fam, that, I'm a newspaper guy, and I got the Sun Sentinel last Sunday. And Florida is very interesting when it comes to anti-Venezuela, anti-Cuba, anti-Nicaragua, anti-Honduras, anti-socialist, anti-leftist, anti-worker, anti-whatever in Latin America. The biggest amount of politicians are right here in this state, in Florida. So much that even the ones who are not from that region have to act accordingly because they have people living in their district. South Florida leaders want Trump to starve Venezuela leader of power, and it goes into a whole conversation. And guess where a lot of the anti-Venezuelan government people live? They live in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district. So she has to play one hand here where she's like, I'm not happy that we don't have the sanctions that were that we're on are no longer on. We need to starve out the president. However, he didn't give due process for these people. So they have to be like anti-Trump, but pro-Venezuelan at the same time. And it's very interesting because most of the articles that are in your papers nowadays, when it comes to foreign policy, are just taking articles from AP and they reprint it over here. Florida has their own journalists out here that do talk about a lot of Latin American affairs. And it's very interesting because you have Debbie Wasserman Schultz asking for more sanctions that will cause more deaths to the people, but still being anti-Trump by saying he didn't give these people in the boat due process, and that's wrong. It's very, very interesting. And, it's just crazy because she's got what's called in the city of Weston. They're called the Weston Whalers, fam. They're anti-Maduro, anti-Chavista governments. Almost the other day, somebody was by and she was from Venezuela. I said, not a Chavista. And she's like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like you do have a big contingency of them here where they don't like the government. And it's very interesting what we see here in Florida. And that's where Marco Rubio's from. And Marco Rubio is pushing hard like crazy. Marco Rubio was also behind. Did I have it in there too as well? Because put it on up there about Trump, right? We talk about Trump saying, oh my God, narco-terrorist, this is narco-terrorism. Well, the Trump administration in 2017 actually backed a narco trafficking president. And the OAN, which is the OAS, you can say Organization of American States, was normally a CIA cutout front, right? Where they're already talking bad about what's going on in Honduras right now. They're already talking crap. They even said in 2017 that the election was so bad they should redo it over again. That's how bad it was. But Donald Trump went along with it. It said Tegucigalpa in Honduras. Amid a deepening electoral crisis in Honduras, the administration of President Donald Trump on Thursday certified the country's progress in protecting human rights and attacking corruption. This is in 2017. The move comes nearly 2 restive weeks after a presidential election, but Hondurans still do not know who their next leader will be. President Juan Orlando Hernandez narrowly leads in the vote tally, but has not been declared the winner. His challenger, Salvador Nasrallah, who will hear that name, alleges fraud. Like I said, the OAN said it was so bad that they should do it. Donald Trump approved of it. We don't have to read the rest of it because I don't want to get into it. All we have to know is that Donald Trump supported it. Juan Orlando Hernandez stayed in. He's spending time in a jail in Miami right now, fam, him and his brother, for trafficking narcotics. That too Donald Trump supported. And we were there in that country, and they were pissed off. A lot of people said, yeah, I went to America. My family went to America in 2017. Because if you're going to dictate who our president's going to be, we're going to go to your country, right? If you're going to sit here and rule our country, then your country is our country. If your president's making our decision, I guess I can go to America. And they did. They didn't want that. That's why we saw so many people, even people in the opposition, wanted Juan Orlando Hernandez's party gone. They wanted him gone.
It feels like a long time ago, fam, that happened. Do you remember when I went to the border when the caravans were coming and this guy literally was like, Hillary Clinton overthrew. I mean, he literally said it in Spanish, right? It was insane. They know more about what we did than we do about what we did.
Exactly.
So.
We got to meet with Manuel Zelaya. He gave us books. That book was robbed from my house in a bag. I'm pissed off about that. He signed that book, but he talked about his whole experience and how they cooed him. They grabbed him and threw him off the street. Remember the question I asked? I got to ask Manuel Zelaya a question. I asked him, I said, what's going to stop the United States from doing to Ziamara what they did to you? He gave us a kind of bullshit politician answer. It was a beautiful answer. Right? There's a German philosopher who says that politics is a continuation of war. But he also says that war is a continuation of politics. And then he went into this answer. But I mean, we were there. We saw it. We witnessed it. Donald Trump supported a narco trafficker. And Marco Rubio met with Juan Orlando Hernandez plenty of times as a senator, 3 or 4 times, right? So don't give us this shit. It's about narcotics being trafficked in here. You supported the narco trafficker for president. And even the OAN said that election was bad. Don't give us the bullshit.
The last thing I want to point out in this section, because it's not about Venezuela, but it's important. This is from Democracy Later, as Pasa likes to call it. NBC News said that Trump administration is looking into a possible U.S. military mission inside Mexico. Now it's called a mission. So they've drafted these plans to deploy U.S. troops and intelligence officers, aka the CIA, to Mexico to attack drug labs and narco trafficking leaders. This is according to NBC News. On Tuesday, meaning what day is it? Yesterday, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, denied the reports, and she said this isn't going to happen. And she said, first of all, it would be a violation of our sovereignty. Well, I mean, we don't care about that. And our independence. And second, we can collaborate, we can coordinate, but it's not about the United States coming to say or to intervene or have their agents, because that didn't work either. And it's not about coming to use war techniques in Mexico. So that's what's also happening, guys. So Mexico is also now on the watch list. So again, we're going through a multiple now. We're attacking North America as well, because Mexico's in North America. They got their eyes on Central America because they got their eyes on Honduras, and next year Nicaragua. They're trying to overthrow Maduro in Venezuela. They're going and sanctioning Gustavo Petro, who our friend Daniel Kovalik is representing, which is a very good thing. And then they're going out and trying to see what else they can get out of Peru, Bolivia, and the rest of the countries that they just captured. And that's it. Argentina's Malay. They've got him. It's great. It's great for them. It's terrible for the people of Argentina. And I mean, the region is really like boiling right now, unfortunately, and it's not a good time.
Yeah. So that's it for right now, guys. We're gonna get to the next section, fam. Right? We go with that. Yeah. We got a couple trolls in the chat. I love these people. They come in, they hide who they are, they create new accounts, they get new names and stuff, and they hate. We love to hate. Bring it on, baby. We love it. You're full of shit, anyways. But thank you to all the support for everybody out there. What's not? All the links are down below to support the show. Independent media needs your help, and we need your help. So please help and support the show. Fam, the interview with 60 Minutes, right? That was crazy with Donald Trump. It's sad in a way because we're right back to where we started from. The social engineers, their plan is working. They're keeping us divided. We are buying so much into the WWE wrestling site mentality. And it's the same old stuff. I call Donald Trump a jarhead, just another Republican, because it's the same old talking points. How did they get us to go back there? All these things that he said was going to be different. The peace president, right? Oh, yeah, now he's still reading off this list of all these wars he stopped. It's ridiculous, and people go along with it. You know what I'm saying? Communism's the enemy. China's the enemy. It's all these weird things. Hugo Chavez is the enemy. Yeah. So let's get into the interview. I broke it down in different parts so you can adjust to it. Jayme, the first part we're gonna play is the Venezuelan part, right? We want to talk about this. This is what he said in a 60-minute interview about Venezuela. But here's the thing. The mainstream media is so pro-war, and they have all the talking points. They actually make Donald Trump look like he's being rational about the situation. Take a look at this. So, fam, once again, I think we talked about it in the beginning of the show. What is it called? The Muriel boat ride in Cuba. Scarface used it. Oliver Stone put down. I think, I think he put it was suspected, right? That he opened up his prisons or whatever. There was a lot of people that he did say they were oppositional. You want America? You love America? Then go to America. Get out of here. Go ahead and do it. I'm sure that happened. But I don't know where Donald Trump comes up with this, and people do buy this. They're sending us their worst. They're sending us their prisoners. They're sending us their insane asylums. But when you look at the raw data, as far as being a criminal, immigrants, legal and illegal, commit crime at a far lower rate per capita person than American citizens. So I don't know why people buy this all the time. The majority of the people that are coming here are simply peaceful workers. We lived in LA. We worked in the restaurant business. We know what it's like. These people hide in the shadows. You know what I'm saying? And they're just great workers. But it's still, once again, like I said, it's very, very sad. It's the same old script over and over again. And it really does demonize the immigrant coming here, fam. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, this is the thing that works because people have no people are so afraid and they have been made to be afraid of the other. And that's the distraction, both from whether it's from the left or the right, because you know the right are afraid of the people coming in through the border, right? That they're taking their jobs, that they're displacing them. And then you have people on the left being afraid of the people on the right or anybody with a different opinion. And also randomly Russians and you know these brutal dictatorships, whatever brutal dictatorship they accepted as being legitimate. So you have all of this fear. And in fact, this came up in a conversation with a friend where, you know, she told me her parents said that Costa Rica was dangerous. And look, listen, Costa Rica is literally like the whitest place in Central America. Like there's literally a bunch of hippie wannabe like, you know, expats that live there. We know a very sweet lady that lives in Costa Rica. She's retired. She went with us to Nicaragua. I'm not saying it's not as safe as Nicaragua, because Nicaragua is one of the safest places I've ever been to, but it's not that dangerous. And I think Americans who especially haven't traveled or who really haven't gone outside of, you know, say a resort or just the typical tourist thing in Europe are so afraid of everywhere else. They think that everywhere else looks like crap. They think that, you know, life just simply doesn't exist everywhere else. And it's just not true. I mean, it's again, and I'll say this anytime, there's a lot of things about Russia that I'm just like find mind-boggling. But one of those things that I don't find mind-boggling is how safe it is, and specifically in Moscow and specifically in major cities. It's just so safe. It's incredibly safe. In fact, I can tell you I am much safer here than I am in the United States, because the one time I went to the United States, there was a shooting. And that I have been to war zones, I've been to crazy places, and honestly, the most unsafe I've felt in terms of what could possibly happen is in the United States.
Yeah.
But it's that living in fear, that mentality of just feeling like somebody's gonna come and get you. But that fear is so misplaced, because that fear should really be on the people running the government, the people who are running the show. You know, those are really the people you need to focus on. But as long as they can distract you with, you know, the immigrants or so this person or that, they've got it made, man. They can keep playing this game for a long time before people realize what's going on.
Brian De Palma directed Scarface, not Oliver Stone. Yes, Oliver Stone wrote the screenplay. That's what I said. He wrote it. Brian De Palma did direct. Brian De Palma also, I believe, directed Carlito's Way, where, you know, Al Pacino played a Cuban. Very bad acting job. Very terrible, by the way. If you ever seen Scarface, that's a terrible fucking, like, stereotypical Cuban. Hello. Everybody likes it. No, it was terrible. He'd even play a good Puerto Rican in Carlito's Way. But yeah, Oliver Stone wrote the screenplay. Brian De Palma directed it. Let me be straight on that. I did bring this other piece, Jayme. I'm going to add this real quick. I'm going to play it because while we're talking about the immigrant being the criminal and the scare tactic, I'm going back on this. He said this early in the interview. Watch this here. So, fam, there it is. Once again, the murderers, the criminals part. We got that there. That check that box. If you came here illegally, you're already committing a crime. No, they're allowed to come here according to a lot of international laws that America signed off to. America wrote the charters as far as being a refugee, especially when we have bases in those countries driving people here in the first place. That's why due process is so important. So to throw them out right away. And let me just say this much too as well. Here's the kicker. Donald Trump hasn't deported half the amount of people per day than Obama did. Obama was the deporter in chief. He did it quietly. He didn't make as much noise. Obviously, he's going along and creating a spectacle. But now you have a whole Gestapo group and ICE who are illegally covering themselves up running around terrorizing people. And I just like to say this much. As you have this rhetoric, and Donald Trump is doing this, obviously when the other side gets in power, we saw what they call you domestic terrorism, domestic terrorist. It never ends, fam, with the immigrant. It only begins. So this type of crazy fucking over-the-top police state tactics is going to come home, and the chickens is going to come home to roost on you.
Get it, fam.
Let's go to the next clip. There's no volume, Jayme. I think I gave the wrong times. I think it was supposed to be. I wanted to talk about Taiwan, but you get the gist of what's going on, fam, with the reporter laying out all those things, all those scare tactics, I mean, who's the leftist here and who's the conservative, right? I mean, it's so funny because I remember you doing a crosstalk, and what's his name was on there? The little guy. I forgot his name. He was like, this is kind of crazy here because who's the leftist here and who's the righty here, right? You had this, you know what I'm saying? You had this
about Lionel?
I forgot his name, but it's crazy now. Would you think that that's a 60-minute? Would you think that that is a person from the left? I mean, she laid out all the scare tactics, the false narratives about China. They've infiltrated our electric grid and our water systems. Where's the proof of it? Where are you getting this at? Where this is the old school Chinese scare right now. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about Taiwan there is because it seems like we are still kind of prepping ourselves for some type of war and interference with Taiwan. APAC was just went over there and had their first conference a couple weeks ago. And there's a lot of people in Taiwan who are kind of getting aboard of it, at least politicians, because they understand to be loyal to the United States is to be loyal to Israel. Look at Maria MCM, from Venezuela. She understands. She knows. She's playing that game with the same things going over there. And it seems like we're preemptively moving towards a war eventually with China, and Taiwan will be the battlefield. I don't know. I feel that way. You could see the way the media frames China. I mean, that was just ridiculous, fam. Your thoughts?
I mean, this is just going right along with the fact that there's very little difference between the two. And ultimately, no matter who we get, they're looking at China. They're looking at, potentially what they can do. They're even looking at seeing how they can, manipulate Russia against China. They're looking to see how they can work their various angles, because ultimately our biggest competition, let's face it, is China when it comes to the world. And how that's playing along. And China, for example, in Latin America has made strides, and they don't like that. So even the Latin America thing is also about China, because that's where the competition will come for these minerals. So of course, this goes right perfectly along with the foreign policy.
Yeah. Which in the interview, he goes on to say that he made a deal with Xi Jinping about getting these rare earth minerals and whatnot. And, he said using the tariffs. I mean, this interview had everything, fam. I mean, just a list of certain things. Obviously, they talked about the government shutdown and Donald Trump, Democrats' fault. Same type of rhetoric we get all the time, one side blaming the other. He talked about Obamacare being terrible and what's the solution? And that's the next part I want to talk about, because when it comes to healthcare, we've experienced some stuff in the last couple of years when it comes to family members. My mom, when she's had a stroke, and obviously she's still in certain condition, but getting her into the right type of therapy was such a struggle because she was dealing with individual insurance that kept denying her. I've had my own health reasons where I've seen, the use for Western medicine. It shouldn't be probably at the forefront. I think that functional medicine, Chinese medicine, looking more at the roots and how to treat these things are very important, but it does have its place. And I've gone from being for healthcare for all to not being for healthcare for all because I think the system needs to change and we have a sick care system, back to being, well, if it came down to healthcare for all or not, at least the public option should be there, because so many people will die from cancer or other illnesses because simply they don't have the money or the insurance to help them. There's a place for it. But the thing that drives me crazy is Donald Trump in this particular situation. It's the same tactic from the Republicans, right? They play their part. We don't want the governmental health care, whatnot. Let's get rid of Obamacare without a solution in place to say, what are we going to do with all these people who need that health care? Take a look at this clip over here. Here's Donald Trump once again. This is something that's important to me right now. I think it's important to you, but it's the same old game. Let's just stop it. I can't. He starts going into these fucking rants. He drives me crazy again. It's the radical left. It's the Democrats. They're crazy. And by the way, just like the way that the left media now, if you haven't noticed, they still kind of are anti-Trump, but they're a lot more supportive of him right now. They're not as crazy going after him as before. They've aligned a lot on a lot of things, and it's like they've been told, okay, you could pat Donald Trump on the back. Before, you couldn't give him any credit whatsoever. But if he's going to go ahead and play ball with Israel, play ball with the empire, play ball with the fascist corporations, then pat him on the back. But this whole idea is that we have to get rid of Obamacare with nothing in its place. Yes, Obamacare has its problems. Yes, our healthcare system is a sick care system, and it needs to be fixed. But if you pull the chain, right, you're talking about premiums that are going to double. And this is a state here in Florida where a lot of people come to retire and eventually go up to that spirit in the sky. You start pulling it from some of these people over here, fam. We already know what it's like treating cancer right now if you don't have money. Can you just imagine if they would just get rid of Obamacare? And I'm not a big Obamacare fan because it's mandated insurance. I'd like something more like a public option, right? And I know there's problems with public option, but it still gives people the option. You want to stay, you want to go, you want to get in, you want to get out. Let's do that, right? I would like to see a healthcare system across the board right now. And I met a conservative recently who told me that a healthcare system is needed, right? But this whole idea that you just get rid of it, you 86 it, they tried to do it, they couldn't get it before. Now they want to do it again. They're using the idea that too much of this healthcare goes to illegal immigrants. He kind of alluded to that. But how ridiculous it is that you want to pull with what very little safety nets in place without an idea or plan to replace it. It's ridiculous. He's putting the cart before the horse.
As usual.
As usual. What would your thoughts be if they pulled Obamacare? I mean, you've been experiencing some of this healthcare stuff recently, fam. It's like ridiculous.
I mean, the healthcare system in the United States is probably the worst besides the Philippines. I mean, it's just, there's no winning. You can pay $1,000 or $1,500 a month from your paycheck to get health insurance, and you still have to copay. If you get sick, you need to still wait to get your scans. You still need to get approval. The system is slow. People just are waiting to see for, the idea of, for example, privatization was that things would be faster. That's not even a thing anymore. You talk about Canada, things taking a long time. Well, it takes a long time in the United States too. If you're sick at all, if you want to get an MRI, your insurance company has to approve it. And guess what? They don't like paying for those. So if you want to go get an MRI, you need to get something else first in order to get the doctor to approve an MRI. These are things are getting, the Republicans are even worse on than the Democrats, although the Democrats had every opportunity to do something about it and they didn't do it because they also make money. So again, like, we have a healthcare system that's, as you call it, a sick care system. It's mainly to profiting. The sicker you are, the more money they make. And so the doctors are just basically stuck in the system. They know this is how it works. Hospitals stay open because this is how it works. It's a business. It's not about taking care of you. It's a business. Pharmaceutical industry is a business. You can't use ivermectin, can't use benzodiazole, can't use any of these things because there's not money to be made. So you got to go and pretty much use the pharmaceutical things that are promoted. And a doctor could lose his license if he promotes something that's not allowed by the system. And then none of this is improved upon, no matter which party is in charge. This is just how it works. And you better hope you don't get sick, because once you get sick, you really start finding out how bad things are. And, and people who may be not political, trust me, they'll certainly become political after going through the healthcare system. Once it affects you and your family, you realize it has nothing to do with the fact that we can't do it. It's the fact that it's a business. And so certain people would have to lose a lot of money in order for you to get healthcare for all, or in order for there to be an opt-out system, or to be, you can get, for example, how it is in Russia, where you have the healthcare system that's free, and then you have the one where you can pay extra if you want to go to a private hospital. You know, they have the public option thing here. But in the United States, doctors get paid a lot of money. People in the medical field get paid a lot of money. In Russia, doctors get paid next to nothing in comparison. Yeah. I like literally probably under $2,000 a month for most doctors. And so
but
is
they
there
do
the
because they have a
incentive?
desire to do it. They have a want to do it to help society, keep them healthier.
So there's a difference when you go into medicine in the United States. There's a difference now as to why people go into medicine. And there's a lot of people that are in medicine in the United States and Canada who should not be in medicine because they're not doing it for the right reasons. And I say this about any profession in the world. If you're not in it for the right reasons, you shouldn't fucking do it. It's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. So divide and conquer, that is the name of the game. If I was writing a script, I would write in Mamdani to be the mayor of New York. It's the perfect divisive candidate there right now. And already, like I said, I'm getting texts from people in New York right now. And there are people here that are snowbirds. They live half the time in New York, half the time in Florida. Some of them threaten to sell their place in New York. If Mamdani gets in, they're just shitting their pants.
No.
So,
the Israelis never want to come into New York? Never again? Oh no, say it ain't so.
It's going to be interesting to see what goes on because they're freaking out. But Donald Trump, watch him talk about Mamdani over here before we get to the Mamdani section.
Okay.
Fam, he's a communist. He's far worse than a socialist. He's a communist. Fam, we've had for a long time this kind of comical point of view about communism and socialism from the right for quite some time, but it does play into the divide and conquer mentality, and it's just par for the course, fam. Please take it away before we get to the section, because I know you got a whole section on Mamdani. Could we take a 30-second break, though, so I can use a little podcaster's room, or do you want to just make a comment about it and I'll run real quick?
Just run real quick, and then
run real quick. And
Jayme,
you talk.
Yeah. Okay, so you took him out before he was finished. That's so funny. So again, this is Mamdani would not be who he is if it wasn't for Donald Trump. He wouldn't have even been as popular. This is my opinion. Like, I don't even think he would even be as favorable if it wasn't for the right, because they say things about him that are just absolutely ridiculous, that he's going to impose, some sort of like radical jihadist type of law when the guy is as milquetoast as they come. He's a Nepo baby, guys. He's so like non-threatening. It's not even funny. He's a typical like millennial, yuppie bro who grew up in New York and who's gonna come in with his like, I'm a socialist DSA type of member, and he's zero threat to the establishment. So when you have people on the right, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's all of these podcasters on the right, or even people who have zero clue of what's going on in American politics in Russia, like a lot of these commentators are, oh my God, look what's happening, bye-bye New York. It's like, guys, you don't know anything about US politics. Please stop commenting on things absolutely nothing about. This guy is like as threatening as a glass of milk. He's not a threat to power. And that's precisely why he's now the mayor. If you recall, AOC defeated the establishment because she was allowed to defeat the establishment. And so now you have this whole band of progressives that are basically just rebranded establishment, as we have pretty much documented for the last, like, I don't know what year is it? 8 years? And Mamdani is just the latest air freshener flavor that's come in. And he's taken down the Palestinian cause as this brand. Look, we're gonna speak out against what's happening in Palestinians, and then the next day we're gonna go on a show and talk about anti-Semitism and talk about how we care about combating anti-Semitism when why is that anybody's main concern right now? Are you serious? And you have him being promoted by the establishment elite and the establishment light elite. You have him having conversations with Barack Obama, with Elizabeth Warren early on. You have him, of course, in pictures with Soros. And this is what I want to lead on to the next thing, Jayme. We can start going there, or I think Pasta has, I don't know if he has something else to say, but I'm going to start going there myself with this whole Mamdani thing, because I think he is absolutely there for the purpose of continuing to polarize this right left paradigm that is not representative of, I think, the majority of people in the United States. It is the polarizing outlier. You have the sock Dems that are basically useless. They're not going to get you change. They're not going to get you anything whatsoever. And then you have the right wings, populists of sorts, that are afraid that there's going to be Muslims coming in and taking over America and imposing things against Christians, which is absolutely insane. That's just not happening in any way, shape, or form. And between all of this, you have the Zionism, right? The people that were like, yeah, we don't really, we're glad that the Zionists are pissed off, but at the same time, this guy is just, in name, Zohran Mamdani. He's not liked by the actual resistance people that who understand nothing is going to change for Gaza, for Palestine, for anybody, because a guy in Muslim with a Muslim name, or with a brand that's it has this Indian Muslim brand, is going to enact any sort of difference for the rest of the world in foreign policy. One, he's a mayor, so he has nothing to do with that. Two, this is all very superficial shit. But he is pissing off the right. But guess what, guys? That is exactly what they want to happen, because they want to piss off the right, because the right is calling him a communist. You just saw Donald Trump calling him not a socialist. He's a communist. This guy's not a communist. This guy is a rich kid. He comes from a wealthy family. He lives in New York. He's not a communist in any way, shape, or form. Please tell me that you know nothing about communism. And then you have the socialists themselves calling themselves socialists when they're not socialists. They don't even know. Socialism doesn't really exist in the United States. It may have had touches a long time ago with unions and with Social Security and public education, but everything's been privatized. Yeah. So it's really, really hard to discuss this, because there's no nuance. Again, we're back at, there's no nuance. There has to be just this polarizing end, and that's that.
Sorry about that. Yes. I just wanted to point out the jihad thing, right? All right. So now you have people going, he's a jihad. We have a Muslim jihad running New York. Meanwhile, and you've said the word that kind of best describes me, he's a rich kid. This is a milquetoast, that guy, right? You have Jelani, Donald Trump, ushering in and welcoming Jelani to the White House, who is an actual head chopper. You people need to get your head straight. Donald Trump is okay with a jihadist or authoritarian regimes and monarchs in the Middle East, but this guy over here who supposedly got elected, more like selected, whatever, he's the bad one. He's the jihad. It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so we can move on to that section, right? You didn't have anything else?
That was it. No, that was it. I thought you were already in it when I went to
Okay. So I did a tweet today, because I'm just I go online, fam. And I'm so sick and tired of seeing a lot of people, maybe some friends of ours, some maybe not friends of ours, but a lot of people who are podcasters, a lot of people are journalists, a lot of whatever. They're literally, it's like nothing has changed in the last 8 years. Like it's like they're doing the same shit and expecting different results. So I just want to explain what I mean by this. And I think I sort of laid it out just now. You can pull up the tweet. So this whole thing with Mamdani, and the reason why he's so popular right now, it's because he's got to convince the right that he's this radical jihadist communist, right? That's going to come in and impose Sharia law. But he also has to convince the shit libs that he's a social democrat that's going to bring in these feel-good changes, because this is all they care about, just how they feel. as Pasta said earlier. It's an emotional thing. We feel like he's going to be good for Gaza and the Palestinian cause, but it's really all about, the yuppie thing. And they're saying, oh, he's going to impose rent control. And so the millennials that live in New York and are, liberal, underpaid millennials, they're like, yeah, he's going to be good for us. But the reality is he's neither, right? He's not there. He's just serving as the purpose as to why you have people saying goodbye, New York. You're now going to be, Islamic paradise for these crazy terrorists. And then you have on the other end of the spectrum, right? These people that are saying everything's going to be rainbows and the economy is going to improve just because he's there, and we'll have peace in the Middle East because he's somehow now the mayor of New York, right? And so, again, he's not a threat. This is going to change absolutely nothing. That nothing will fundamentally change. That has been literally the things we've been saying for forever. But I think, a lot of these people that are paying attention to this really don't care about actual change. They just like the idea of it. They like the idea of this stuff because it allows them to go to their echo chamber and have their confirmation bias as to who this guy is, whether they're on the left and they say, oh, look, this is so great for us, or whether they're on the right and they're like, oh, this is, the end of Christianity in the United States. And by the way, on the contrary, this guy is not any sort of anti-establishment threat. He's part of it. Now, you guys see the picture with Soros. And it's not just Soros, though, because everybody goes straight to, oh, Soros. Soros, yeah, he's a part of it. But this is not just the only thing. It's every other relationship he's had that's been thrown out on the internet with the political elite class that he's a part of. And he's going to be another Obama, another AOC, another, progressive. This is just once again serving the purpose of pulling people back into this idea that you can fix this
status quo.
You can reform it, right? They're doing the same thing again, and they're going to continue to fail because none of this is going to change anything. And while you do this, right, while the right and the left are so occupied with this guy or with figures like this guy, because he's not the only one, there's several of him, there's no organization, there's no change to make actual change. There's no movement being built. There's no thought process saying, hey, maybe we should try something else. Maybe we shouldn't play this game again. So for me, as somebody that's not in the United States right now, watching this, it's absolutely just depressing, man. It's absolutely you all, I don't know if it's because people are so preoccupied with getting the clicks that they have to constantly go to the next thing. Last week it was Sydney Sweeney's boobs. Now it's Zohran Mamdani. The next week it's going to be whatever the hell it's going to be. And before that was Charlie Kirk. So everybody just follows the next topic. Yeah. And then it's just there's no in-depth analysis. Everything is a distraction. Everything is serving the purpose of having some sort of debate that isn't going to lead to any change. And so what I've noticed is I think people in the US don't really don't want change. They just want to talk about the idea of change. They don't want to do the work. They're not ready to do the work for change. And it's depressing to watch this because it's the same thing. And, the right are doing what the elites want them to do. The left are doing what the elites want them to do. And at the end of the day, the root problem is never being discussed. It's never being addressed. And we're having the same thing. And it's reality TV. I feel like I'm watching America via television set. And it's reality TV. And it's worse than Love is Blind. It's worse than Love Island. It's worse than the Kardashians. What's the other? It's worse than Selling Sunset. It's worse than literally every reality TV show. The Bachelor. It's literally worse than all of it because it's just so bad. It's so bad. It's so obviously scripted and fake. And when a show is that scripted and fake, you still kind of might want to watch it because it's it could be dramatic and entertaining, but it's fake. And the sad part is it's your life. It's everybody's lives that are being just screwed in the process. Yeah. And while these rich people start saving themselves, while they're building their bunkers, while they're, doing the things they need to do to get the hell out of there because shit is going down. The empire is falling apart. Everybody else is just like, this is so funny. Ha ha. The Zionists are pissed off. Ha 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 ha. Like it's just like, if you don't take it seriously, like fine, but you know, it's seriously going to happen. And when it does, I do think people are gonna just not know what to do with themselves.
Well, fam, things aren't that bad in America as you say they are. We have Netflix and Domino's at the end of the day, so we do have some form of freedom and entertainment. So why go revolt when I can just get, myself the ultimate pepperoni pizza with a cheese-filled crust that's awful, not even real cheese, and I can sit back and watch a series on Netflix than rather have to go out and get myself dirty in the revolution. But my question to you is, fam, is that what you're going to hear, and I said this earlier in the show, that the system's designed to give you these emotional victories. There will be some like movement, right? I think what people aren't seeing right now and why this is a psyop is that, the left is always kind of further advancing stuff that the right can't advance. And the right will advance things that the left can't advance. The best example is that Reagan probably couldn't sign NAFTA. Bill Clinton could, right? He can get away with it. Donald Trump got away with bringing in Larry Ellison, Sam Altman, all these technocrats that the Democrats, if they did that, people would be screaming, the technocrats are here. The Great Reset is here and stuff. So I think that, is it worth it right now? And I know a lot of people at my radio station at WBAI like Zohran Mamdani. Somebody put down in the chat that Brianna Joy Gray was jumping for joy. I don't know if you have that in the doc. I'd like to see that. Maybe we can find that.
Oh, you didn't see Rania? Rania interviewing him?
Rania, I know Katie Halper was kind of getting into it and stuff, and I've been saying that
Katie's people though, but it's the same people. Go ahead.
Crystal ball and stuff. No, what I'm saying is that if there is a rent freeze, right? Like when you see him go through the whole scripted stuff when he was on MSNBC the other day, like, what's your breakfast order? Bagel with cream cheese, side of jalapenos. What makes you an American or a New Yorker? The fact that you recognize what a bodega is. You know what I'm saying? What do you want people to get out of democratic socialism? The fact that all New Yorkers should be able to live with dignity and respect in New York, right? He's saying that, and then they asked him, what has the Democratic Party lost in not representing the working people anymore? Like, he's tapping into that economic starvation right now that people need. If there is in fact a rent freeze, and I know there will be people at the radio station who will tell me, see, Pasta, this is positive. We got to take the victories where we're at. If in fact there is a rent freeze, is that some form of a victory, even though despite that, we understand that he'll start pushing advancements of the corporations and the ruling class on the other side, right? Like, once again, he said openly, those who lost their jobs because they refused to take the COVID vaccine, and he was asked, they didn't get due process. And it was kind of funny because those same people who are complaining about the due process are okay with immigrants not getting their due process, but they didn't get their due process. Would you hire them back and give them their pay? He said no. And he's probably the perfect person that could be put in place for authoritarian needs from the ruling class in the case of another vaccine, in the case of another virus, whatever. So if in fact we do get an advancement in one place, like a rent freeze, because rents are ridiculous in New York, is that somewhat of a victory or no?
So I've been asked this question before, and for me, is it a victory if you keep believing that what politicians say, politicians that have already, before they got to this election, shown you who their allies are and who they're going to be loyal to, is that going to be a victory for you, really? I understand the idea of short-term goals versus long-term. I understand the idea of getting what you can get because you're in a desperate situation. I understand that idea, but that idea in itself, that dangling carrot, has kept the people here in this position, has led to this moment where you're still begging for crumbs. You still think that a rent control is the solution after the last 15 years of asking for that, after the last 20 years of asking for $15 an hour. You still think that that's going to solve the problems that the United States is in? If you still think that, you don't understand economics, and you certainly don't understand the gravity of the situation. Because no matter how many rents are frozen, if he even does it, because I don't believe that he's going to do it, whether or not he wants to do it is another discussion. But let's say he does want to do it. nine times out of 10, he won't be able to do it because this is a much bigger thing than that. And let's say he does do it, there's going to be other things that rise up in price because that's just the way things work, because you're not tackling the tumor that's in the body. You're tackling the side effects.
Yeah.
You're not going after the root cause of the problem. You're literally just going after the symptoms that you're getting. And so you're taking these pills thinking you're gonna stop it somehow, when you really need to actually get this shit out of there and start over, or you're going to die. And this is the I guess the analogy that I can get to answer the question, because it's the same thing of tackling immigration at the border. How are you going to tackle immigration if you're still intervening in other countries, if you're still sanctioning them? You're not tackling immigration, you're putting more holes in the boat and putting band-aids on them and expecting the boat not to sink. This is the mentality. This is how they get these people. Oh, but if he just does rent control, that'll be good for New York. Okay.
They'll say it was worth it just for that alone, fam. They're going to say that.
How long until that's not a thing? How long until he turns his back on that? Do you remember when AOC and the squad said that they would do that they would stop, they would impose rent control, that they would try to get $15 minimum wage? Why do you believe the same people backed by the same group?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Well, again, when they didn't fall through their promises the first time, why do you continue to watch people that tell you that you should believe in these politicians when they weren't right 8 years ago? They're still not right, and they're still doing the same thing and preaching for you to go back into that mentality. That's just really helped no one, and it's only divided people further, because I want nothing to do with these stock Dems, these DSA, these people that are absolutely like not the ideology that I want to be behind. And it's not because they're woke, it's because they're not what they say they are. They're an iteration of the same Democratic Party, the same way that a lot of the populists are actually that of the MAGA, let's say, are of the right, the neocons. I mean, they're branded differently, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, they're going to do the same shit. They're going to fall in line.
Pro-imperialism. Yeah.
The same way.
They're pro-imperialist. Me and Jayme said it. He put it up at the same time. They're all pro-imperialist. They'll vote for it at the end of the day. And there's a lot of these people there. I was at a Palestinian event in LA, and David Crow and I were together, and David Crow got into it with one of them about how they were looking at Russia and trying to say that Russia was on the same level. They're just junior imperialists, and they're what I'm saying? It was like, do you even know what's going on there? And I had to pull Crow away because he was so pissed off. I'm like, Crow, come on, bro, don't get into this with her and stuff. But that's who they are, and these are the people who are showing up. What I'm saying, at these rallies. So it is a shame. So
I'm going to answer this question. So number one, you don't know that it's going to help them. You're getting told this is what's going to help them. You don't know that. You don't know if it's going to help them or not. But what it will do is ultimately elongate the process. It's not an actual solution to the problem. And if you think a politician that is a Nepo baby is going to come and do things for the working class of New York, you don't understand New York, because New York is like completely embedded. It's like Chicago when it comes to politics. It's like super corrupt, and none of these people are going to have any ability to do it. If they did, they wouldn't be in power. If Mamdani was an actual threat to the establishment, to Zionism, to the elite in New York, do you think that he would have been even allowed to run? That he would even be allowed to be there? He wouldn't. And that tells you everything. Not just the picture with Soros on his side, by the way. If that didn't do it, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously funded by the same people. You got the Roy Singhams in there too as well. Yeah. And they all want this guy. I didn't see some of these pictures of Brianna Joy Gray and Rania and Katie, but if you guys want to get those up to see that, I mean, that's kind of, somebody said in the chat that Brianna Joy Gray was jumping for joy. I mean, that's crazy. Do you have anything else to add to your section? Are you halfway through it, or do you have to read some more stuff, fam? Where are we at? We're coming up in almost 2 hours, and you got to get to the
No,
gym.
that's it. I mean, well, there was something that I put there. Oh yeah. So just so you know, I mean, I think everybody knows at this point he won. that was the only, I think we skipped that one. He won. Mamdani had the victory, right? He swept the elections and everybody's been celebrating. And the Republicans united behind Cuomo because they were like, we don't like the granny killer, but we'd rather have that than the communist Islamist Sharia law guy. And it's like, ugh, God, guys,
And
please.
if I had to choose between Cuomo or Sleewall, I chose Sleewall every day too, as well. By the way, he's not a nut job at all. He's got some Republican views I don't like at all, but he has actually got a lot of good answers for a lot of the he looks at a lot of the issues for what they are directly on. I mean, I don't think he can enact change in some of his positions I'm not crazy about, but he seemed like the most grounded of the three candidates. I mean, I just thought Mamdani was full of shit all the time. I thought everything he was saying, he was spewing, to me was BS. But I don't want to talk more about that because that's being held against me at the radio station now. So I don't want to talk too much because, hey, you got a clip for us, Jayme, of Breonna Joy Gray, or no? Why not? Jump in here real quick.
Does he have a clip of anybody? He seems like he has a clip.
No, I don't have any clips of him.
Why not?
There's a clip. What clip is this?
Which one?
Oh, that's okay. That's something else. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, the only clip I have are the ones that you shared with me.
Okay, well, that's it, guys. I don't have anything else. That's just that's the Mamdani thing. We've been at this for almost 2 hours. I
have
just
this.
yeah, well, that's great. I just wish that people weren't doing the same shit 10 years down the line, but they are, and they're the same people. It's the same people. And by the way, it's always this is where the classic thing gets in, right? It's always the New York political journalist class that is really supportive of these DSA types because that's their people. That's their people. Those people have nothing to do, with the realities of the world that we live in. Like, I mean, it's just not, the politics, when it's funny because these people talk about working class people and working poor, and the majority of them are not. The majority of them have no idea about this stuff. Like, that's why I think I hate it more than I even hate like the regular establishment Democrats, because they paint themselves as caring about working people when they literally do not live in a reality of that. And I'm not saying you have to be living in dire poverty to be anybody that has something worth to say, but they don't put their money where their mouth is. And the thing is they continue promoting elite light candidates. And, if you're still going to those people for political advice, you're going to continue getting that same message because the career is predicated on that. It is absolutely number one to everything. So you're going to see the hurrahs from all these people online. And I don't know if you saw Emma Vigilant. She said something about our democracy. It looks like it came straight out of it was insane. It was insane. All these people are celebrating. And to me, that just shows you how self-centered in New York, in particular, the New York liberal class. And I consider DSA, Roy Singham's, all those, whatever, PSL light people, a part of that. They're all part of that. They're no different than the Democratic Party. And if you still think otherwise, just wait a few more years and you'll see, because this is not at all helping anybody. The only good thing I saw out of all of this, I will say, is that Israelis are saying they're not going to go to New York. So it's like, well, how about you just don't come to the United States in general?
Fab said that, not me.
Can I ask a question though?
I'm just agreeing with her.
If is it wrong for people to be excited about Mamdani because it's not Cuomo? I mean, because I think
it's the same thing.
No.
Trying to put Cuomo in though, but the people being excited about voting for Cuomo, you're just endorsing corruption outright. So you're getting somebody.
So you want to endorse the covert corruption instead? There's no degree of separation from Mamdani.
Yeah, but you got a point there.
There's no degree of separation from AOC and Donald Trump. They all serve the same masters. They just do it differently, covertly and overtly. That's it.
I mean, I get it,
agenda
Jayme.
still gets played out, and the time of acceleration keeps moving forward. Sorry, fam. Go ahead.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, I ultimately, Pasta, you're right. But I mean, in their mind, they still see it as like, okay, well, he's better than Cuomo. You know, he's saying better things than Cuomo. His policy page is better than Cuomo. You know, the Zionists hate him. Cuomo likes the Zionists, you know. So isn't that a plus that he's pushing the, what is it? The overtone window. I can recite all of these perfectly.
Yeah.
We're pushing the overtone window. We're slowly, incrementally changing things. This is actually good because look, no matter what, he is actually, the fact that he won means that Zionism is a problem in America. And you could even argue that point. You could even say, well, maybe that, you know, Israelis and Zionism are hugely unpopular. This is why you even have to put out a candidate like that. But is it really not already controlled then at that point? Because if you have somebody like Mamdani, as we said, that even got to that power, he's already given the Zionists what they want to hear. He's already said we're going to combat anti-Semitism. He's already gone out there and stomped for them. They already know that despite everything he says, he's not a threat. So is that worse then to trick people like that, to make them feel like he's something different when he actually isn't? I think it is. For me, it ultimately is worse in the long run. In the short run, it looks like it's a better thing for New Yorkers or for people who want, you know, to get Zionism out and all this stuff. But for me, like, ultimately, is he actually going to do any of what he says? I don't think so. And so, you know, hey, prove me wrong. By all means, go be an actual, you know, socialist. Go do the socialist thing, and keep the Israelis out. If he does that, of course, I would, you know, say. But
with Mamdani, you go from the possibility of any socialist programs being zero to now being slightly greater than zero. Still pretty low. But
I actually think it's the opposite. Because
guess why? Yes. Without him?
Yes, because he's going to fail miserably because he's not the real thing. And so when he fails miserably, like it happened in San Francisco, Pasta, if you recall the guy. Yeah, when he fails miserably and when he doesn't do what he says he does on either end, because he's going to try to please both sides. So he's going to fail miserably. They're going to say, oh, it's because of these socialist communists that are coming in, the radical left, that this is going to fail. And then we're going to get even further away from anything remotely close to a genuine Mamdani, a genuine, like, actual worker economy focused type of society, because they're going to blame that. They're going to say that's communism and it didn't work when it doesn't work because he's actually not going to do it. It's actually done to further us away from that. And then who's going to come in next is going to be ultra right winger who's going to clean up New York. That's how it's going to go.
The way it works.
Bookmark this shit. Write down the time, because that's how it's going to go.
The thing is, like, even if he wants to do these programs he's talking about, which maybe he does, he can't do it unless he has a government filled with people who think like he does. And he has a government filled with people who are opposing what he wants to do.
He's got Democrats opposing what he's standing for.
It is Democrats. It's not Republicans opposing him. It's Democrats opposing him. And so he's not going to be able to do those things. Even if he has the will to do it, he's not going to be able to overcome that, just because he's got to fill his cabinet, and he's got to fill all those positions in New York to be able to do it. And it is disappointing, because I mean, there's a lot of people I think he would have good intentions that are very supportive of him. And I will say this, like with Brianna Joy Gray, since we brought her up, she is very anti-Cuomo, so much so that she was even supporting Silwa. So to say she's so excited about Mamdani, she is, but she's not the reformist. She's more aligned with, like, we got to change the system than some other people. She's not as much of a
She's had some very blind spots over the past.
She does.
Her talking about Russia and I never forget, like, Fiorella retweeted her, when Putin does imperialism. Like, how do you fucking say that shit? And then she was letting Matt Duss just run off. And eventually she came around on some stuff, but she had a lot of blind spots, just like most of you progressives do on foreign policy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, remember, she's PMC. and she's never going to stop being PMC, but she's a kind of a woke PMC. She understands the class struggle, and but she's not going to stop being who she is. So
well, that's enough of that. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes. Fam's got to get to the gym. I got to get ready for my next show in about an hour and 20 minutes. You can come on over to watch me up on WBAI. Well, you can listen to me. You can't watch me. Just go to WBAI.org and listen live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. I do drive time. Me and Fam will be back on Friday for the TruthWire 2 as well with Jayme CheeseSlice on the 1s and 2s. I'll be on Matt Weinglass's show, The Homeless Left, tomorrow. We're going to try to get out here Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays and see what's going on. We got a lot of things on the dock. We're also looking to see if we could possibly go to Honduras and make that happen. So we're back in business. My health is coming back. So I'm doing a lot better. Thank you guys for all the support out there. You guys have anything else to say before we get on out of here, Knuckleheads?
Real quick, tomorrow I'll be on with Uncontrolled Opposition with Gloria and Jeremy Kuzmarov.
That's right. You know, I should mention that show. That's you can watch that live on Pasta to Go, the YouTube. Jayme put the link down below for the Pasta to Go. Everybody go over and join Pasta to Go right now so you can watch that live. That's a great show. The Professor Jeremy Kuzmarov and Gloria do an amazing job. Uncontrolled Opposition. They've had some great stories there. I can't even believe that goes out on a New York radio.
I can't either. Some of the stuff that
that's
they do.
crazy to me. That's what I said.
We'll see how long it goes on for, but that's it.
I mean, they buried the show at 6 a.m. on Friday, but it's still there. So
you have all the ways to help us are down below, Jayme. We got everything in the chat.
Yeah, we got it. I believe I've got everything in there. I mean, unless there's some more links you want to share with everybody, we can add them to the description. But
we're good for now, as long as it has our ways they can help out the show. That's all we really care about right now is they can come support independent journalism.
Definitely. So if
you
like,
it's all down there. It's all down there.
If you
right?
like going deep in like government conspiracies and a lot of assassination attempts and stuff like that, Uncontrolled Opposition's the place to be. Jeremy is just a machine on when he researches this stuff, and then he can regurgitate all of these details about these different plots. And you know what? There's a playbook, and the establishment follows this playbook over and over and over again. And
they do.
When you start studying these old ones, you look at something more recent like Charlie Kirk, and you start seeing the patterns there too. So definitely watch that show. If you like this show, you're gonna like that show. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Check us out, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Guys. We'll speak to you soon. Truth time, truth out. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.